Okay. We're live. Tim, I'll just get you to move in a bit there.
I'll show you that.
Perfect.
Big fines for the coach.
All right, Lofty 88.9 FM, and we're in the Huddle stream here. Got Kangarilla Football Club Coaching Director, Rod Mitchell, Pistols, Jimmy Glover. All right. Yeah, it looks really good there. No worries.
But the good thing is we'll just wait 30 seconds to 45 and it'll
it'll
possibly fall over and drop out.
A bit of form, is there?
Well, am I wrong?
Oh, I was tempted to get another one, but it's gone all
I
right.
think I did say to you I was going to sort it, didn't
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll back again. Oh yeah, there we go. Lofty 88.9 FM, you're in the Huddle. It's 6:18 on your Wednesday night. At this time of night, we like to get a special guest in from the Hills Football League, and we've gone into the country division competition, and the team tracking along very nicely at the moment is the Kangarilla Footy Club. They defeated Meadows last Saturday, tracking along very nicely in there. Coaching director, who we've chatted to on the call of the while, but we thought we'd get him into the Huddle, and he's driven here. It's fantastic to have him, Rod Mitchell. Rod, thanks very much for joining us.
No worries, boys. It's good to be here.
Now, the season so far, how have you seen it from the guys? And
Yeah. At a club level, it's what are we now, 4-3, but there's 4 other clubs sitting on the same point. So it's a challenge. We started slowly. We brought about 10 or 11 guys into the club, and a big influx of new players and new coaching staff and game plan, etc. So we're going to get better the more we play. It's simple as that, because the boys are now halfway through the year, and we had a couple of narrow wins, and then we had some losses where we'd been leading going into halfway through the last quarter and getting run over the top. But yeah, we're just starting to find our feet. We're starting to get a list together now, and we still got 3 or 4 out, like most of the clubs have, in both divisions. But hopefully the next 7 are going to be enough to launch us into a final series.
Now, Rod, good to see you again, mate. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
Just for the benefit of our huddlers and those joining us on the stream, just take us through your football journey and how you end up getting to the Kangarilla Footy Club.
Yeah, I'm an old bloke. I originated from Clare, where I did all my playing, originally coached. I was there for 20 years, and I moved. I was working with SA Power and come to the city when that was privatised. I went to Happy Valley and worked with their junior program there for about 10 years. Then I moved over to the Flagstaff Hill, where I started coaching senior footy, and I was fortunate enough to be there when that premiership run kicked off. I spent 10 years there and coached the A-grade team for 4 of those.
Wow.
I had a year off, and then I went down to Maiponga in the Great Southern, which is a wonderful competition, where I spent the previous last 4 seasons, and they wanted a playing coach. I'm too old to play, so I had a son who had spent quite a bit of time at Kangarilla, and he said, "Dad, can you come and help us out there?" And that's where I am.
Yeah, and Kangarilla, a great little community club. I suppose you could say it's a south-western corner of the league, really. How have you found it?
Oh, like you said, great little club. Like those little places, the footy/netball club is the hub of the community.
Yes.
Which is the case there. They're pretty hungry for success. They've won an A-grade flag since 06, and I don't need
Wayne Stringer.
Yeah, Wayne Stringer's a memorable flag, and I don't know if they've won a B-grade one in that time either. So, so the club's working really hard. But there's also, there's bigger goals for the club. We want to ensure that we've got longevity with our Colts teams, and eventually, we get some success at country level, that we can, put our head up and see what's happening in Div 1.
Well, that's one thing I was going to ask you, because they're sort of back above their weight a bit. In fact, where they are, I know they do draw a few kids from sort of over the Aberfoyle Parkway, but I know a couple of years ago they actually went and played in a separate comp, a Sandford comp, because they had the kids and there was no availability of a competition for them. You could see that the Hills has got a viable country division Colts competition now up and running, but where do you draw all your juniors from? Because Kangarilla's not the biggest place, is it?
No, and you're right. But when you look around, there's some big clubs around. McLaren help us out in the 14s, right next door. There's an arrangement there. Last weekend we had lads from Happy Valley help us out. Happy Valley had the bye, and our senior colts. Our senior colt numbers aren't too bad. We're sitting in the mid-20s, but you lose half a dozen to COVID and flu, etc. So we had some lads from there, and like I said, big clubs in McLaren, Happy Valley, and even if you want to go further down the hill, to Ranella or somewhere like that. So I think the Colts problem there isn't such a problem where you look at some of the other clubs in Country Division where they really don't have that overflow. I was when we were at Kersbrook, I spoke to Kersbrook, their club about the Colts, and they pull guys from up down the hill. So there is, I think that's the answer. It's unfortunately Colts numbers are falling in football in general. They talk about the growth, but there's a small nucleus there where there's kids dropping out, and so that's got to be a real focus for community clubs. Because at my Ponga we never had Colts when I turned up there, and after 4 years the committee worked really hard, and they lost the grand final and they won a premiership in the 10-team comp.
None at all.
No, and they had a combined side with Kangarilla. And then, when you're competing against big clubs like Encounter Bay and Gould and Victor, who have got those big schools and those big towns, for a little club like my Ponga, and I think that sets an agenda to say, you get your program right, your kids' program right, and then flow on. And then, the next season after that, we had 8 kids come up into senior footy, and I think there was 13 one year. So how do you recruit 13 players with points and salary cap? So you've got to come from below. Flagstaff Hill, 7 out of the last 8 flags. When I went there, we had a wonderful junior program, and Brett Charlesworth was the president of the footy club. They put a 10-year plan in place, which came to fruition when I was fortunate enough to be appointed as a senior coach. And 18 of the 21 in our first flag in 31 years were juniors from the club.
Wow.
We're talking to Rod Mitchell here, Kangarilla Football Club Coaching Director. We're live on Call of the Wild Facebook page and also the Huddle Facebook page. In terms of Kangarilla, obviously they've made some prelims over recent years, had a bit of a drop-off. What have you noticed when you arrived, and how ideally do you take them to one of those flags that you've got previously?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't look in the rearview mirror very often when you go into a club, because we can't do nothing about that. We can't do nothing about what's happened last season or previously. And the way lists move, it's some of those kids that were 18, 19-year-old playing in those teams, they forget pretty quickly, and you just need to give them hope that what we're doing is right and we're building in the right direction. So I think the club needed a bit more structure and just a bit more professionalism than what they had. They had a wonderful side 2 years ago when they went through. I don't think they were undefeated, but they got knocked out in straight sets in the finals. And
Bang.
you look at that list. There was guys there that I didn't know them at Kangarilla, but I've seen them like Michael Ross, for example. I was at Victor Harbour. We coached against Michael Ross when I was at my Ponga, and but then there's other lads there like Weiss and these sort of guys who are playing away from the club. They aren't there now. I think they lost 16 players the following season, which made it pretty tough on which was season 23. So what do you change? We brought a game plan and some structure. We've actually we've moved guys around a little bit, and we've put an education process in place where I think I told you boys before. We use footage extensively. I code every game, and every player gets his own footage, and we review team footage, and every Thursday night we sit down and go through what we did last week and what we're doing this week. So just a bit more structure, and it is a small club, but the more professional you can be, and it just lifts the standards, and that builds a different culture around the place, and hopefully that'll roll through into, if we manage to play finals, it'll roll through into our finals campaign.
Jimmy?
No, I think you just hit the nail on the head for me. Obviously changing that culture, getting everyone to buy in and come along for the ride as a club, and not just as a senior part of the club, makes a heck of a difference.
Yeah, and Tim, the club ethos is really important. We've got we've got young Clayton True running around in the Colts at the moment. On the weekend, he got best on ground in the senior Colts, and he goes up and gets best on ground in the B grade, and so we'll promote those lads into play some senior footy for us. And I think. And the culture, what I'm doing, I meet with the senior Colts coach, and the game plan we've brought in. They won't take up the game plan totally what we're teaching senior footy at the club, but there's parts of it they'll pick up. So when the kids come into the senior grades, they know the basics of what we're teaching. And after senior coach training, we Thursday nights we might have 45 on the track. We get 10 of those colts, so they want to train for another half an hour with the senior boys. Just so they can pick that stuff up. So it's very satisfying to see what's going on 7 weeks into the season, games wise. But there's a long way to go. I think we've got 7 more games and 2 more byes, and so we're 10 weeks away from a final series.
So is there room for improvement? Or what areas?
Lots. There's every.
Hang on, I think I'll just interrupt you. Sorry, there. Is there a bit of Supercoach coming out here now? Just shows his notebook he's got out. He's just taking some notes, or
I might have to get Colby down as he might have to come to training tomorrow night and do a review for me.
Or he'll be offering some suggestions.
Well, I'm open to suggestions.
Just in what I've had a look at, I think Rod, you could improve in a couple of areas.
I'm happy to take.
All right,
that.
is there one that you think you'd like? One area that you'd like?
Look, the team game that we play, we defend very well. We don't really. We have 10 goals kicked against us. We need to score more goals. So we tried some different stuff on the weekend, and we kicked 15 against Meadows.
Speaking of which, Pistol probably mentioned Daniel Butcher. That name familiar at Onkaparinga Valley, I reckon, quite a while ago. But can
Flagstaff Hill.
You'd like to tell you about his impact, how he came to it.
Daniel's a veteran now. You need to remember that.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a lot of veteran forwards in country division and good footballers. So Daniel was a bit of an interesting case. He was. I reckon I spent 3 nights at the Duck Inns buying beers and schnitzels in it 3 years in a row to recruit him to Flagstaff Hill.
Yeah.
He'd previously been to Wollonga and we got him to Flaggy, and he had a sidekick there in Sam Smith who went down and played some league footy at Sturt. And Smithy was a 100-goal forward, and to have Daniel Butcher just playing in a pocket, getting the 3rd best defender was a bit of a luxury. So I'm a good mate of Butcher's. I rang him when we set up what's happening at Kangarilla, and
said you're going to go to the Duck Inn again.
No, I told him I'd run out of schnitzel money.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, has the cost gone up? It's actually rump steak this time.
No, it's gone from chicken to beef schnitzel. So
righto.
So he won't play every game.
He will qualify for the finals.
He'll play enough to qualify for finals, and
it's managed.
He's just smart. He's just
that's
very
called
good footballer.
smart list management. Not managed, smart list management.
The other thing that happened at the club, and Tom Driscoll, who Winks is a forward. We
the Winks man.
The Winks man.
That's right.
He nearly cut his leg off from the knee down. Actually,
wow.
Had a work accident. So
year?
When I say that, 3 weeks ago, when I say that,
wow.
Yeah. So he had a bad gash in his leg, and he hasn't played since, and he's probably another couple of weeks away. So for the Kersbrooks fans, you won't have to plan to have Winks out there this weekend. But
he's all right though.
He's going to be fine. Yeah.
When's he back in track work?
There was no. No, he's out in the paddock at the moment.
He's with the French man. He's swimming in circles.
He didn't do any didn't cut any ligaments. It was all flesh, and it was.
What did he do?
He's a carpenter
now, so you can mention, I suppose, what took place. It's almost
he's a carpenter. And he's very embarrassed about it. So if you're watching, mate, I apologise, but he stumbled and fell into some corrugated iron, and
why they're called accidents.
Yeah, but he's all patched up, and he'll play again. But he's going to miss a chunk. But we couldn't afford to lose. When I said we're trying to improve our our offensive for our game, and we lose our big forward. But we had another lad come in, Jerry Johns, who's played a couple of games.
I was going to ask about Jerry Johns. He's a junior originally, won a medal.
Yeah, junior, then ex-Flaggy boy as well, went to Flaggy.
Yeah,
played some games over there, and he played down in the Murraylands, down in the Mallee, and then he's a very good mate of my son's, Jonty. So Jonty managed to recruit him out, and he played first game of B grade. I think kicked 10 goals against Torrens Valley, and more schnitzels, and now we got him running around in the A grade. He kicked 5 on the weekend, and I was talking to Dorsey after the game, and the Meadows game, and he just didn't have a match up for him. So so that's but like I said, there's a lot of movement in every club we play, and every coach I talk to. There's a lot of movement, 4 or 5 moving in and out every week, and hopefully you get them right by finals.
Yeah, right. You have a recruit from the Wimmera, is it Charles Trotman?
So Trotsy's a mate of Winks's, but he went. So Trotsy played at a higher level, but he, like Winks, are both carpenters, and they have their own businesses, and they've got young families, and they're at the stage, when you're they're not old by a long shot, they're in their prime really, but when you got a young family, you got your own business, you don't want to play 18 games and go to training 3 times a week. Where the country division actually offered them a solution where they had 5 Saturdays off. Trotsy goes to Pilates on Tuesdays now. He doesn't train on Tuesdays during the colder months, which was part of the contract. But that's that's once again managing the list of those guys. When it gets cold and wet, we may even give them a week off. But
and it is becoming more of a we joke about it in here, but the number of guys, and certainly as they've got a little bit older, that are running their own businesses, still trying to play A-grade football. And I think it's going to become more and more prevalent as time goes on.
And what's happened is the insurance industries doesn't allow these guys to protect themselves to the levels that they used to be able to. Like if they get a football injury,
income protection and the like.
And clubs used to, back when on my Clare days, we used to offer that as an incentive to play. We didn't have salary caps and things like that.
Clubs can't afford it now.
Clubs can't afford to do that. We used to look after our tradies by offering some insurance, but we can't do that. So
Lofty 88.9 FM, you're in the Huddle, and we're live streaming also on Call of the Wild and the Huddle Reform Facebook page. We're chatting to Rod Mitchell, Kangarilla Football Club coaching director. We won't do it as intensely, Pistols, but have you got any questions,
Yeah, I was just going to ask.
Oh, no, I meant the Gorilla style.
Yeah, before we get in that. Josh Albanese, will we see him this season?
Yeah, Josh did basically every ligament bar his ACL in round 2 against Meadows in the last minute of the game, and he's now back running again. So the intent is he'll get enough games in and be around finals time, but that's still a month away before we get that get him back out. But like I said, Josh is our captain, and he was very important to us. But we lost him in round 2, and it's it's a bit of the enigma about the country division. It's you say you play 14 games. If you have 5 buys, it's 19 weeks, and if you're trying to get somebody back out on the park, well, those weeks are pretty important. So so in short, we'll see him at the end of the year.
Rod, is there any truth in the rumour that Tyler Virgo wants to go back to Nangwarry because it's warmer down there?
Yeah, that's a big no. He's
going well.
Oh, look, he's a credit to himself. To come back to his junior club, to play association footy, and I watched that game to the level he played, and he's been invited to train with the squad. So for the zone team,
the zone team.
So for a lad I think he's the first from Kangarilla to do that. He told me, So we as coaches, you tend to wrap your arms around them and try and protect them from being playing. Some coaches don't allow it, but I'm a bit different. That I prefer the lads to play because they come back better footballers. They do.
He played well.
Yeah, and he's going to be better if he can go and play some footy down at Victor Harbour in the zone comp. He's going to be a lot more confident. Obviously, the rest of the comp know who he is because he gets a tag every week, and now he's playing well with a tag hanging off his back. So
now, obviously, you have a pretty good relationship with Daniel Trevino, who actually calls the shots when it comes to throwing the magnets up or whatever. Who's got the last say?
The last say is an interesting one. I'll just go back one on that. So, for the benefit of the listeners, Daniel's named the coach. I've come in and to oversee what's happening, and I've done a lot of work on the front end. Daniel and I, the history there is I coached against him at Port Noarlunga, and then when I went to Maiponga, we needed an old head. We had a pretty young group, and we recruited Daniel, who's doing some work with Glenelg as well with the under-15. So he's doing some coaching outside of the club land, and so the plan is he'll take over as the season goes on. It's a really good environment where he knows the game plan, he knows the structure, so him and I talk the same languages. During training, he takes most of trainings. Because we've got the footage, I do a lot of one-on-one coaching, which enables me to free up myself for that 1.5 hours so Daniel can go and with the group. Game day, obviously, when he's playing and when he was injured, he was moving magnets. But game day, it's minute by minute. I've got the reins. During the breaks, we talk pretty closely.
What I like about the game we saw, just his ability when he's got the football, he's playing deep in defence. He used the ball creatively, set up so many attacks.
Wonderful
from
leg.
The last line. Yeah, great leg.
Great leg. Yeah, he's to have somebody like that on some of the smaller ovals as well. He can create forward entries for you when he's coming off half back, and not shallow ones, deep ones. So, but the rest of the comp's caught up with him now. He's there's a lot of defensive forwards playing on him. So,
Timmy, anything you'd like to ask? You're right. Yeah.
No, I'm all
That's
good here
I
at the
think.
moment. I think it's exciting to listen. You've come in and almost gone through a rebuild.
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And the one thing that we can never control, you think you've got it all right, and then you get 1, 2, 3, 4 injuries. Then you get another one come out of the blue.
Yeah.
And how you imagine the thing looking at country, and it's the same thing in Division 1 or Central. And I've said this a couple of times throughout the season. The season's quite even. The competition's quite, in terms of where we've seen it in the past. Both Div 1 and 2, you've got 6 teams that are in it.
Oh, 100%.
At the midway point with very minimal games between.
And then, it's Torrens Valley aren't that far away. We only beat Torrens Valley by 2 points in round 1, and they'll upset teams on the back end. You talk about Div 1. I've got a mate, the coach of the Chunga. He was my assistant at Flagstaff Hill, Darren Van Zetter, and the improvement that just what he's been able to achieve. He's brought in some good footballers, but he's got some really good kids there playing some good football.
Yeah.
And they're not going to win. They're going to have more losses than wins, but that takes a while. It takes a while to transition, your game plan, and you need to bring guys in and hold them because, you don't have abundance of points, so you need to keep the 3-pointers because they're 2-pointers and then 1-pointers.
Yeah, they're down to.
Yeah, so I keep a good eye on being a footy head on both divisions, and yeah, both Magpie teams are people. If you're a betting man, you probably put some money on them both teams, but I don't. You see what happened last year in the grand final and won, and I as good as Gumaraka are in the country division, I reckon there's probably another 5 coaches around the place saying that we probably, if we get things right, we could probably beat them on our day.
Absolutely.
I agree with it. Yeah. Hey, 7 weeks into the season, who have you identified as the pest in the Kangarilla Football Club?
The pest in the Kangaroo is probably Adam Ward. I'd suggest the half-backer that.
He won the beanie.
Yeah. He's pretty quiet. He's playing a new role for us. He's very consistent now. But he's up front. He's pretty cool, calm, and collected. But I know he's the one with the spoon in the background. So we've got our ball this week, and we're down at the Bay. But I've told the boys, and I'm a wise old head now. I stay until 10 o'clock, and then I go home because I don't need to be there after 10 o'clock. But
what you didn't see didn't happen.
Yeah, that's right. And but so that question in a week's time, I'll probably be able to.
Well, speaking of the ball, so obviously they've got to look their best. So who actually hogs the mirror in the change rooms?
I think you know that one. The big Winks.
Ah,
Yeah, he's one. Winksy's got to look right to play right. But out of the young guys, there's a lad there, Henry Richards. He's a junior. I call him the silent assassin because he's a guy. If he touches the ball 5 times, he's going to hurt you. And but yeah, he's very pristine. Another one is a lad with Jake Corstons, who played some footy at Ranella. Mm-hmm. I love Jake because he plays long socks. So long socks up is very rare. But
Well, long socks themselves are rare.
they are.
is he a tidy player?
Yeah, tidy. Yeah,
Good.
Yeah, look good, play good. Yeah.
All right, let's get into Div 1, I reckon. Tim and Pistol.
Tipping Tom.
Tipping time, I reckon. Because Brendan's coming up. Looking forward.
All right. Well, good round of matches coming up. The start of the second rotation. Onka Valley, perhaps a little bit disappointing so far, and they take on another side that's perhaps a little bit disappointing. Tongue in cheek, Tim. Timmy's side now. Obviously, you follow the competition. How do you say Onka's hosting Barkaroos?
You'd have to go Barkaroos, I'd suggest. Where is that going?
At Boanna?
Yeah, well, that may lean the other way, but look, it's one of those. I think that's one of those 50-50s. Just looking at results, I don't dig deep into. I don't know the bottom dozen players in each, those Div 1s, but I look at the top end, and and I think that's how you judge clubs is, how deep do you bat? Both clubs very similar. Off season, Barker probably had a couple of bigger losses, but I'll go for the away team.
I won't ask you who will win, but
the Bulldogs, they'll be
I
suffering
suggest you
some
want to jump out the blocks a bit quicker.
savage bruising after last weekend.
Yes.
The Magpies gave them a fair touch up both grades, but I think, look, at the end of the day, I don't want to be as drastic as saying it's a must-win game for the Roos, but I'm pretty sure it's a must-win game, so Roos for me.
Roos for me.
Yeah, I think Lackers will be a bit chilled by last week's performance. So, all right, Mount Lofty travel across to Blackwood, Windy Hill. Take on Blackwood, who perhaps been a bit disappointed, but under Clyde Rigdon,
starting to get things going though.
Just can't play a full game at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting what happens when you change a coach mid-season, isn't it? You see that often, that they just get up and bounce a bit higher. And I've been a neighbour of Flagstaff, and Matty Walton's, one of our lads and those. So keep an eye on what's happening at Blackwood. But I think it's too big a bow to get a win this week. But it's
Lofty.
Yeah, Lofty for me.
Yeah, I'm going with the Lofty.
Yeah, I think Mount Lofty. Loberthal host Loberthal coming off the bye, so they'll be fresh hosting Uraida Districts. It was a 1 point ball game in round one. A lot's changed since then, but always have a good crack at each other, these two sides. This game out at Lobe, Tigers and the Demons. How do you see this?
Would they be arch rivals out there? Yeah.
Well, yeah, over the years,
Rivalry.
Torrens Valley,
yeah.
But
Which it's a 50-50, isn't it?
I think it's the toughest one to pick this week.
And where is it?
at Loberthal.
Yeah, I tend to go when they're tough, the home teams. It's a little bit different than the country division because all the south sides have to pack our lunch and also tea when we go north.
Which we'll get onto that in a minute.
I'm home team for me.
I think I'm going to go Uraida. They were good. I reckon Timpano, Amato.
Yeah.
Geez, there's some
I'll
class
go
there.
Radler, just.
I think you're right. I was quite impressed with them Saturday. I think they're just starting to, like Winks, just set themselves for the spring. The big games in the spring.
Of young Ferrari, young Schultz in the ruck.
Yeah.
Those two young
And
fellas.
Nightingale, the young fella.
They play exceptionally good footy.
And Cooper Nycamp, just the 1%ers.
Just continues to do what Coop does.
Looking very much forward to this game, the quarter mile game, Courier Cup final, so $500 plus the trophy up for grab, top of the table, Harndorf.
Bragging rights.
Going for 10 in a row, I think, Courier Cups, and rematch of last year, obviously, when they won. They're taking on Nan Bremer, the Rams hosting, so this should be a cracker game, Rams and Magpies.
Yeah, I've got a good mate at Nan, and Scotty Willis. He was I coached him back in the Clare days and North Clare days, so I was a bit of a Nan supporter and I was delighted to see what they did last year when it had to be done, but Harndorf, they know how to play the big games well, don't they?
They do.
Mate, 10 in a row for the Magpies. I think they'll get up.
This is an interesting game because it's similar to last year, and we thought, and then, Harndorf got them pretty easy in the end. I just got a feeling, Nan. Harndorf.
Yeah, I'll split this as well. I'll go Nan.
I think Nan, 1 to 10.
Yep.
1 to 10.
Righto.
Benny, you're on the 1 to 10?
Yeah, 1 to 10.
We got you in because for the important rounds in the country division. Okay, Birdwood.
What I need before we go on is the local weather forecast. That's all, because we're going to Kersbrook.
Yeah, longer.
Right, Birdwood hosting Macclesfield.
Snow.
The Bloods coming back after the bye. Macclesfield taking on Birdwood. Birdwood a good win last week, so Mackie a game behind them. So Mackie'd want to win this to
big game.
Even up.
Yeah, it's tough to pick too. But Mackie probably playing a more physical game, and Bird would like to run the ball with the younger legs they have, and is that Birdwood?
It's at the Velodrome. Yes.
Yeah. So Mackie don't want to lose touch with the other clubs that are one game in front of them, and that's right. Every game's so important, but I just Birdwood's got a couple of big forwards, and Birdwood for me. I think if they can get out and run and might be a bit swift for Mackie over the ground.
Birdwood at home.
Birdwood at home.
Yeah, I think Birdwood. All right, and remaining two big games. Of course, Meadows take on Gamaraka. Of course, Meadows beat them first time around, and they've had a little bit of an upset. They've lost the last three. Gamaraka, as you said, on top of the ladder, going along nicely. So, yeah, they'll be able to reverse their only loss for the season. This game is at Meadows.
Yeah. You just have a look what Gamaraka did last time they were on the park. You know, that was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That was brutal, really. You
Yeah.
know, was it 21
Yeah.
or 2-1? So.
Yeah.
And you know it looks like they got more personnel since we've seen them. Benny Hanna broke his hand against us, and so he hasn't played much footy since then, and he's still not playing. But geez, they've got some good players across the ground. Yeah, and obviously having a look at Meadows last week, Meadows are a good team. They still got the nucleus of what they had there that's got them into those grand finals, but maybe just their forward structure. They've got some the Door boys are pretty big targets. So they probably need somebody else to bob up.
My intel tells me that obviously Barnhagen started the season beautifully, the He-Man, but he's dislocated his finger, and it keeps dislocating when he's putting it in his pocket. So he might be end of season.
Daniel Chick.
Yeah, so that's the intel I get, is that the forward structure, obviously big Chad down there, but
And Turlick, Dean Turlick.
Yes,
throat.
Which was it was an unusual one. I had a look at it on the footage when I coded the game. He basically, one of our boys was underneath him and he fell on him, and it was an elbow that got him in the throat and took him out of the game. So if you have a look at Meadows' results too, Dean Turlick, when they've been losing, hasn't been playing those games, and Timmy Webber, so they're important to them. I think to answer the question, I think Gamaraka win. It'll be interesting to see what Meadows do in the second half to overcome those, the goal kicking, try and get a few of those smaller guys to get goals, because, when we played them in the first round two, those guys were the ones that did the damage.
Well, they've come back to the pack because there's 4 sides on 4 wins now.
Yeah, that's right, and it's really tight. I don't know the history of the country division, but is this? I gather it's a bit of an abnormality. It's not like this every year, obviously. It's that tight.
As you said, even though they haven't won a game, Torrens Valley, you can't take them lightly.
No,
100%. So you'll be going for Gamaraka?
I'm tipping them, yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Tim? Gum?
Yep. Gum for me, and almost the match of the round, unless you know how to get the Kersbrook now for the second time in a row this season. You go up there, so they're coming off a bye, they'll be fresh, and we won't want to repeat it last time when 4 points at 3/4 time, they kicked 7 or something in the last quarter, wasn't it?
We got up by 10 points. We kicked the first goal of the quarter, and they kicked the last 7.
That's right.
Yeah. We had a tough day that day. We
were out.
Yeah, we did. We lost one on the sidelines before we started. It was pretty important. Then we had 3 kids on the bench who'd already played the full game. But
Well, the good news is you're not looking at rain,
well,
according to the forecast, and you may just reach double digits for the maximum.
Fantastic.
I can warm them up, but I can't keep them dry, so I'm not too worried about the cold, especially coming from Clare and being at Maiponga for 4 years.
Well,
So we won't ask you who win, but what do you have to do to win? Just shut down their runners?
Oh, look, they've got some pretty important players through their midfield that really, determine whether they win or not. So we've had a look at them now. They also they get a lot of drive from their back line. They turn footy over and they use the width of the oval, and they're trying to get deep inside. So I expecting we like last time we played them, it was that's the biggest hiding we've had this season was when we played them last time. But we'll be rolling out a different side, and I'm sure they were pretty short that day as well. I give the opposition credit. They were very short, and their boys stood up when they had to, and we didn't. Look, we're looking forward to that's one of the teams we play twice in the split round, so we get Meadows and Kersbrook in the split round, and when you play 14 games and you get who you get in that split round is pretty important. Like if you get Gamaraka, for example, and you're a team that's trying to come into the 5, that's a pretty tough gig, and I think it's my first year in the comp but the Hills, I think the league needs to look at how we allocate those split rounds, because and not putting a hand up for Kangarilla here. I'm putting my hand up for the the teams in the bottom half. They need to be getting those double games, those double ups. We'll say you play them 3 times to give them the opportunity to get points to get into finals. At Torrens Valley, for example, they shouldn't be playing a top 4 club twice. You know, they should be playing
Yeah.
5th and 6th twice.
Structure.
And it's obviously they don't look at the geographic situation because we go to Kersbrook twice. You know, so it's not a geographical decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so you're going Kangarilla?
I'd be sacked if I didn't.
Tim?
No winks, no win.
Oh, that's a good goal.
It's been harsh. Kersbrook at home.
Brookers?
They'll be tough to beat.
All right.
They'll be angry. They'll be angry.
They will be. You're coming off a big win, but I think over at Kersbrook, the Brookers will be too
I'll
good.
go Kangarilla.
Good man, Ben.
Look, Kane's got them playing pretty well,
They
Kane
do.
Powers, but I do think maybe Kangaroo. I'm impressed by Kangaroo ever since I see him earlier in the
I
season.
didn't say I was unimpressed with Kangarilla. I just think Kersbrook will get the chocolates at home.
That's the nature
No
of the game.
winks.
That's good. I'll go for Kangarilla.
Beautiful.
But Kersbrook
One of us
right
will be
in the
right.
game.
This reminds me, Benny, of a few weeks ago when one of us went for a chunga. But we won't bring up that
I
old
won't bring
chestnut.
that up.
No.
All right, that's us done.
All right.
Thanks, Rob.
Rod,
Thanks,
thanks
boys.
very much.
Yeah, good.
Continue to
Great
enjoy
having you.
your
Thanks for the
first
chat.
season in
Thanks,
the HFL, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no,
the
and
Blues.
it's wonderful. Oh, yeah, look, it's great country footy, and like I said, it's refreshing for an old bloke to come into the comp, and it's so even. It's really is. We don't know who's going to win each week, and makes
It's
it
a good
comp.
thing.
All right.
Right, Tim, thanks for your input.
Always a
We're going to
pleasure.
fly because we've got a very good show coming on, looking
Forward looking back, Brendan.
with a legend of the bush, actually a
I'll tune in when I'm driving
verified
home.
legend.
Verified,
it's coming up,
certified.
Brendan. But Betty,
Yep,
we're looking forward to Saturday. So Curry Cup game. Tune in. It'll be, of course, live streamed on Cordwell, but also you can listen to it on the 88.9 FM. And we'll be back for the Huddle Reform next Wednesday. So
Yep.
stay warm and
Stay
keep
safe.
chasing your goals.
See ya.
Thanks, boys.
Program's worthy of a really